Oh, good morning, everyone. My name is Mona Aika, and I'm a child protection specialist for UNICEF Eastern and Southern Africa Regional Office. And I'm very happy to be connecting with you, all of you, this morning in our second webinar for the phase 2 of the learning platform on childcare reform. Beth, if you could run to the next slide, where we can just have some webinar protocols as we continue to settle in. So for those that have not yet introduced themselves, kindly type your name and your job title and the country that you're connecting from or you're working from. And please ensure that the microphones are muted at all times. And we're encouraging to switch off the cameras unless you're given the opportunity to speak. We encourage you to switch it on. In the course of the various presentations, we encourage participants to use the chat box and type any question or comment that you may have, so that we can have time to respond to all the questions and comments that have been typed in the box. And also we have the function of raise hand in this Zoom meeting. So feel free to use that during the Q&A so that you can be given an opportunity to intervene and ask a question or make your comment directly. And we're encouraging everybody who is going to be speaking today to speak slowly and clearly so that we are all audible. And just to also mention that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be shared at the end of this session for your information and records, and also to be shared for all those that were not able to join us today. So just to quickly introduce this session, I'm very pleased that this webinar is on experience matters, bringing lived experience into national care reform. So we'll have a few panelists that Beth will introduce, who will share their experiences based on their experience either as caregivers or care leavers, people who have actually experienced the living in care settings. So let me stop there and let us go to the next slide. And I would like to now welcome Andy Brooks. Andy is the new, not so new anymore, but he's the UNICEF Eastern and Southern Africa Regional Office. He's the advisor for child protection. So Andy will come in and just to run through the agenda. So we'll start off with some opening remarks, and then there will be a presentation from Beth, which kind of outlines the definitions that are being used throughout this webinar, and then we'll have a panel discussion, and of course we'll have the most interesting part, which is the discussion, where we'll have a Q&A, or if you have any comments that you want to share, you have an opportunity for that, and then we'll close the session and also remind you of the upcoming webinars. So with that, I would like now to invite Andy to come in and take us through the next 2 slides. Next. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Mona, and good morning to all the colleagues I can see coming online. It's really a great pleasure to be here. As Mona says, I'm the regional advisor, Andy Brooks, for child protection in Eastern Southern Africa. I've been monitoring and watching this movement on the learning platform develop with a lot of interest. It's such an important subject, and today seems really special, you know, to be able to have people on our panel who themselves have experienced what it's like to be part of the care system we would like to strengthen. What better advocates and more authentic people to be able to guide government policy and support even an organization like UNICEF and other civil society partners in the way forward. So I'm not sure if there's a slide or two I should talk to Mona, or I'll just say a couple of things without slides.
Sure, you go ahead, and then I can go through the slides. It's fine.
Okay. So, you know, one of the things, again, which I think would be really interesting from my experience, Obviously, we're increasingly getting a consensus across the continent that institutional care is rarely in the best interests of children and is very much a last resort. We've worked very closely with many governments over the years. I saw Leon was on the call from Rwanda. He knows much more than me of the experience in Rwanda of deinstitutionalization. And there are other countries where that's in progress, but there are also still an awful lot of children in different kinds of institutions, and many of them are not tracked or monitored by government. Even if there are standards in place, they still lack conformity with those standards, and they're not checked out sufficiently. So I think that's one important message. Increasingly, and often in humanitarian context, but not only, we see the development of foster care networks, family-based care. So there are times when children, for whatever reason, it may not be in their best interests to stay within the place they were, with the family that they were. It's a very big decision for a child to be placed somewhere else, but sometimes it's the right decision, and maybe some of the panelists will share their experience on that. But that is such a big responsibility then, to make sure that the place in which they are in which they go is really going to give them a positive environment in which to thrive and to learn and to grow up as kids, and if possible, to keep some contact with their culture and their family. Very often the case, and it's important that the people who look after those children are also supported, and that there's a system in place to support them, sometimes financially, but particularly in terms of the care and the protection of the children. I've not, as Mona was saying, I haven't been in the region that long. I've been here about 6 months, but the baseline on what is good enough in terms of care for children in the care system, and part of the discussion around our reform is really varies. One of the areas that Mona and myself and our whole team here and UNICEF in the region is really pushing for now relates to violence against children, violence against girls and boys. And we found out that when we look at the prevalence of sexual violence or physical violence against children, it's so high compared to the number of children who ever talk about it and ever, find the confidence or trust to go to an adult or to a peer and say, this is what's happening to me at home. It often takes place at home or in the community or in the school. I want it to stop. And some of those children are being abused in their own homes by families, and they need alternatives. They need alternative care. And so that's very relevant to this part of the discussion. But if those children have no reason to believe that the alternative care they may go into, alternative family care, is going to protect them, is going to be a better place for them, because they're going to run so many risks in disclosing what's happened to them. It's a big ask for those children to have the trust and confidence that there's a safe place that they can go, because of course they're risking so many things with their families as much as they want the abuse to stop. So that's a subject that is something that we're really looking at closely. There are many elements of protecting children from violence. Trained social workers is one, of course, protective laws and policies, more social workers on the ground, and schools and health systems that understand what it is abuse and how we can work together. But this is not a small piece of it. The care, the alternative care, and the options for children, preferably, and as a first call, extended family, but in some cases that might not be possible for children. So regulating that care system so that there are options for children is super, super important. And that's why this discussion is so important, and very much look forward to hearing the outcomes of the discussions and from the panelists. So I think with that, Mona, let me hand back to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy, for the opening remarks and for highlighting the importance of family-based care for all children in all settings. And indeed, your observations are correct. We have some countries in this region that are really pioneers of care reform, including Rwanda, who have really have achieved some milestones in that area of work. Beth, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all the slides. So what I'll do is just to give a quick highlight for those that are joining us today for the first time. The Regional Learning Platform on Care Reform is being managed by UNICEF Eastern and Southern Africa Regional Office in collaboration with Changing the Way We Care. And
we seem to have lost you, Mona. Bertha, can you let me know, are you hearing Mona?
No, I'm not getting her. No.
Okay. Thank you. She seems to be frozen. Mona, can you hear us? Okay, let me try to carry on for her until she's able to come back. So as Mona was saying, the Regional Learning Platform is organized by UNICEF, the regional office in East and Southern Africa, together with Changing the Way We Care. And we're really happy to have a number of other organizations with us today for this particular webinar. The Regional Learning Platform is an opportunity to share learning across countries and across regions on the continent, particularly focused on government actors as well as UNICEF offices. Over all of last year and part of this year, we have been sharing a range of different topics using these webinars, but also different ways of interacting, documents, studies, and more information about what care reform and care systems look like in various countries, and other ways of sharing information. The aim is really to enhance the effectiveness of government care reform. And of course, that work involves lots of different partners, but the main aim with this platform is to really share with government actors and help to make their change process more effective. I don't see Mona back yet, but if anyone, let me see, maybe Bertha, you can watch out for her. I think some of the reasons why this platform started really has to do with the progress that is happening all across the region. I can see that we have people from many different countries on the call, and I'm sure that you can all speak very well to your various initiatives in your countries. It's very exciting to see that momentum, and the platform really aims to support the progress and to ensure that change can continue. We're seeing a lot of policies developed, strategies developed, a lot of increasing amounts of information about how care systems are working in different countries. And then, of course, we can't be remiss in not mentioning COVID-19 and the impact that that is still having, had on families, but is still having on families. And that really gave us the opportunity to explore being able to connect with each other remotely. I'm just going to skip a few slides, and please forgive me, these are Mona's slides, but just to say, in the phase one, which was over last year, we had a series of webinars, policy papers, We had some virtual tours. Hopefully many of you had opportunity to participate in those. And there was also a help desk where different partners in different UNICEF offices and governments could get support if needed. As we move through this year, we're looking at a number of different themes, which I just want to highlight and mention because I think they're really exciting and hopefully applicable to your work. The first one being how to really support families and make sure that families are strong in their ability to care for children. The next will be to take a look at kafala and adoption as alternative care options that really offer and bring permanency to children. Looking at workforce, I think Andy mentioned the importance of having the right workforce in the right places and making sure that the workforce is capacitated to do their work is really important. We'll be looking at emergencies. Of course, today our topic is how to bring in people with lived experience into the process. And then we'll also be looking at some lessons from COVID-19 and how to build evidence and learning. So please watch for those, both webinars, papers, opportunities to come together to discuss those various different topics over this year. Let's see, just showing some of the ways that we'll be sharing that information through webinars, through the newsletter. The help desk continues. I think that Bertha is going to put into the chat the ways that you can connect with the platform, the ways that you can get on the mailing list if you're not already, and really look forward to having you all join us, share with your colleagues, and spread the word about the exchange on this platform. I'm going to stop there. We really hope Mona will be able to join us again. Oh, I see.
I just did.
Hi,
Thank
Mona.
you. Thank you, Beth. And my sincere apologies, I got disconnected and was trying to log back into the network, but thank you for taking us through. I think you have explained why this platform was established and who are the target audience for this platform, right?
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Yes, Mona, we have gone through that.
Okay. Okay, great. So I think now we can proceed with your presentation, Beth. I don't know if you want to have a Q&A here or let's take it at the end.
Okay, thanks, Mona. Yes, if you have any questions about the platform itself, please feel free to put those in the chat box and we can take that towards the end. We're just going to take a minute now to ask you to respond to a couple of questions, which you should be seeing on your screen. And we're really interested in knowing who you are as we go forward in this webinar, whether you're from representing a government, a UNICEF office, maybe you're from a university or an NGO, and then which area of the continent and or other places in the world are you working? So just take a moment if you can to respond to our poll that you're seeing on the screen. Thank you. Just give another minute for that poll. It looks like we have a few more people yet to respond to it. We have about 41 participants with us today, including our panel members, and just about 30 of you responding so far. So one more minute. Looks like the majority of our participants are from UNICEF offices. Significant majority coming from Eastern Africa. Great. Thank you so much for responding. And again, as you can see, just a little bit over 50% of you are representing UNICEF offices. It's great to have you with us. And thank you to the one person who's representing a government. And of course, our important NGO partners are also well represented. As I said, 74% representing East Africa and about 32% Southern Africa, and a couple of people from other parts of the world. So thank you again for that. It's, I think, always really interesting to understand where people are from. So before we go to our panel, we just wanted to provide a little bit of a background on some of the ways that we're considering the terms that we're using today. So on your screen, you see lots of different people, lots of different ages, lots of different faces. And the point with this is to show that there are lots of people that have lived experience. When we talk about engaging and bringing in lived experience to care reform, there are lots of different voices. A person with lived experience is someone with the personal experience of the care system. This term can include children who are currently in different forms of alternative care, care leavers who are young people, young adults, and adults who spent time in a care system at some point in their lives, parents or caregivers of a child who's experienced alternative care. Here we include biological parents, foster families, and kinship carers. In some instances, we might also include the residential care staff who help to care for children. So we're not talking about just one type of person. We're really talking about a range of people. I'm sure if we all think about ourselves, we can all say that we carry our own life experiences with us, and we can understand how these many different people would be part of this term, people with lived experience. At the same time, everyone's experience is individual. No two people have had exactly the same experience. It's impacted by age, by ability, by gender, by many different factors. We also just wanted to frame this really within care reform and within care systems. So here, when we're talking about care reform, we're referring to the changes to the systems and mechanisms that promote and strengthen the capacity of families and communities to care for their children, address the care and protection needs of vulnerable or at-risk children to prevent separation, decrease the reliance on residential care, and promote reintegration of children, and also ensure that the appropriate family-based alternative care options are available. So what do we mean by participation when we talk about really bringing in the voice or making sure there are opportunities for different people with different experiences to be involved in care reform? What does that mean? And I just want to point out the gold star. I think one thing that we really want to encourage is that everybody be aiming for the gold star, for the best practice, for the really strong practice that's required to do care reform and to really bring in many different people to that. The right to participate in decisions that impact us is a really fundamental human right. Beyond that, we all want to be heard, don't we? We want to have the opportunity to make choices and to be involved in decisions. These rights come with responsibilities, of course, which include participating in society in ways that shares our voice, our experiences, and our choices. And for many people, that includes working to improve the various systems with which we interact. That could be in the community, it could be a government system, or it could be in NGOs or even within our own family systems. Beyond that, the Convention on the Rights of the Child also includes Article 12, which is around the child's right to be heard. For child participation, this really provides the fundamental tenet. As one of 4 guiding principles of the CRC, Article 12 is connected to and indivisible from all the other rights that are enshrined in the convention. There are additional articles that really address participation and help to define what meaningful participation looks like. There's an emphasis on creating conditions that facilitate active participation of children with different abilities, and encourages education that really helps a child to be responsible in life around promoting peace, tolerance, and equality. As I said, participation is really about being involved in decision making. You can see on the scale that I'm sharing on the screen, participation can actually go for everything from very tokenistic ways of interacting to really more meaningful ways. And we always want to be striving for meaningful participation. Tokenistic is really when that participation is superficial rather than meaningful. It's often looks like the person in charge or the one with power who's directing it, rather than the person who is participating being the one to make decisions. Sometimes it looks like manipulation. Sometimes it might be best described as tick box, or just simply checking the box that we have brought somebody into a conversation. But we have to be careful not to confuse that with really meaningful participation. That really moves beyond that tick box exercise. It makes sure that people with lived experience understand the purpose of their participation and the level of influence that they can expect, that they're listened to and their ideas are acted upon, that they have opportunities to be included, to initiate the participation, to be part of fully sharing equally decision-making and directing the participation. So this is really what we want to move towards and commit to when we talk about participation. Just to share briefly what this looks like in practice, you can see again that model of care reform in the middle and some of the different areas or some of the different phases or aspects of care reform. In terms of developing strategy, we have had experiences with bringing in care leavers, for example, in Kenya, to be part of the core working group and to be involved in the care system assessment. In terms of policy, again, there's work to bring in people with lived experience to help to co-develop policies, to review policies, and to discuss ways of making sure that policies are implemented. Services and implementation, I think, is a really important area. People with lived experience, different associations and networks can be part of providing services. They have an important voice in knowing what the standards of practice should be and developing those standards of practice. And in our experience as changing the way we care in Kenya, we also see that people with lived experience can play a very important role in training and building the capacity of others. Lastly, when we look towards monitoring, evaluation, and also scaling of care reform and care systems, we can look to ways to bring in feedback mechanisms so that people with lived experience really have a way of giving and receiving feedback on how their participation is going, in building the M&E frameworks around our strategies, and in helping us to build evidence or being a part of research, even leading research. We'll hear a little bit about some of that that's happening now in Kenya, to really make sure that, again, there's participation from a very active level. Of course, working in this way takes time. It takes patience. It can involve building capacity. It can involve moving at a different pace than we might otherwise move. But it's important to remember that people with lived experience want to be engaged in more than storytelling. They want to really be in partnership with us. And of course, partnership is complex and has many different aspects that need to be balanced. Safeguarding is critical, making sure that participation can happen safely, that there's support, resources to ensure participation, and that there's always consent for the involvement, in particular of children and vulnerable young people or vulnerable adults. Just quickly looking at some of the core principles of bringing people with lived experience into care reform. Of course, transparency and information are really important. It's critical that people with lived experience are provided with full and accessible, sensitive, age-appropriate information in order to express their views. Participation is always voluntary. There's no coercion or manipulation into being part of any process of care reform. It's respectful. Views are treated with respect. There's non-judgment around the various different perspectives that can be provided. And there's avoidance of stereotyping and insurance of dignity around age, gender, care status, ethnicity, disability, sexuality, religion, and many other backgrounds. Participation should be relevant. We should make sure that the opportunities, the direction that's being provided by people with lived experience for engagement is relevant to skills, to knowledge and abilities. That we're creating an environment and work methods that are friendly and, as I mentioned earlier, often supported to ensure that that participation is inclusive. And then lastly, just to mention the last two, we really need to make sure that participation is safe and sensitive to risk. I mentioned this earlier, putting in place safeguarding, prioritizing the psychosocial well-being of people with lived experience, providing training and additional support where it's needed. Being accountable means, again, that we have those feedback mechanisms in place, and that there is always open opportunity and evaluation of the work that we're doing to bring participation into care reform. So without further ado, what I would like to do is introduce our panel. I think that's what we're all here for today, is to hear from people with lived experience and to understand better how we can really do this work with quality. So I would like to welcome Stephen Usembe. Stephen is the Regional Advocacy Manager for Hope and Homes for Children in East and Southern Africa. He's an experienced social worker and supports partners in the region to prevent children from being confined to institutions. He advocates for a model of care that allows children to grow up in families. Stephen is also a founding member of the Kenya Society for Caregivers and the Transform Africa Alliance. So welcome, Stephen. Stephen's going to be facilitating the panel today. And before I turn over to you for the questions, Stephen, I just want to welcome all of the panelists, and I do want to welcome also our participants. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to use the chat. We will have time for you to ask some questions after. Our panelists include Rahab. Rahab is a social worker from Kenya. She's a care reform and disability advocate for children in institutional care and for care leavers. She's abled differently and has a personal experience of institutional care. Rahab is a care reform advocate and member of Kenya Society for Care Leavers. She holds a master's degree in children, youth, and international development from Brunel University. And she's contributed to various initiatives to inform and influence policy on care reform. Odile is also here with us. She's a Rwandan mother of 3. She has 12 years of experience working with an international organization for vulnerable children and their families. Through her experience, she and her husband decided they wanted to do more. And since 1993, they've been a foster family. and she's here to tell us about the experience and how caregivers can be part of national care reform. Welcome, Odile. Dennis is with us on the line. Dennis is a community volunteer from Uganda and a care reform advocate. He's an active member of the Community Development Network in Kampala, and he's a youth leader. We also have Olivia on the line. Olivia is a young and vibrant person working to transition to independent living. She completed training in hotel and institutional catering and recently opened and operates a small confectionery shop. She really loves to inspire others, and we're really happy to have her with us today. Eric is a Rwandan banker. He lived in institutional care for 22 years, and he's a pioneering member of the Rwanda Caregivers Association. He also holds a master's degree in finance from Mount Kenya University. He's passionate about advocacy for children's care reform in his country and well beyond. And then lastly, we also have Bertha. Bertha is a journalist by profession and an advocate of alternative care. She's a member of the Kenya Society of Caregivers and is passionate about children's rights, safety, and well-being. She has a diploma in journalism from the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication and is currently pursuing a degree in development communication. She was recently on the team that conducted research on the experience of caregivers in Kenya, which was supported by UNICEF. So thank you so much to all of you. And over to you, Stephen, to lead us in a discussion with these great panelists.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beth, and also thank you so much to Changing the Way We Care and UNICEF for organizing this forum today. And I would also like to really appreciate all the participants, the caregivers, and all those whom you've introduced. And indeed, I think I should say that life for them is not really what happened to them, but it is what they've chosen to become. And they've really chosen to become self-advocates and advocates, for children without parental care in the region and beyond. And so without further ado, I would like to start this session, this discussion session. And first, I think I would like to throw the first question to Barbara and Eric. And one is to really share with us why lived experience is important to care reform. Barbara, followed by Eric.
Thank you, Steve, and the rest, and the other participants for this panel discussion. Yes, can you hear me, Tim?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Eric.
Yes. For the question raised, why is it important for experience or lived experience in the care reform? I believe we all have gone through different things, and what we have learned along the way has made us better, or has made us to make to correct some mistakes and the wrongs. What we lived in different areas of life, different experiences, has pushed us to make better decisions going forward. And that's why experience is important in care reform. It's not a different thing for the lived experience in a care institution. So I will stress 3 points to why lived experience is important in a care reform. First of all, when we go by lived experience, we are meaning not assumptions, we are meaning not predictions. We are talking about facts. We are talking something that has been experienced, something that has been seen, something that is real. And when we care reform is made of what people think, what society think, government, institution, different key players in making sure children are cared of better than the old systems or old means that has been there. So when you want to make a better care reform, when you want to change a bit of the way we care, you need first lived experience so that you have real facts, you have real source of information, you have the real source of information, and you can never get this source of information anywhere else apart from the people who have lived in institutional care of children. When we say lived experience, we don't only mean children or people have been raised in the institutional care of children. We also mean even workers who have been working there, administration, and every stakeholder of such institutions. So when I give you the story of what has been happening in the institutional care of children, or when somebody has worked there gives you the real story, you sound more realistic than gathering assumptions and prediction and imaginations. So lived experience is very important because it is the right source of information. Secondly, the second point, experience matters a lot because of recommendation. Real recommendation, right recommendation are withdrawn through people who have lived such experience. For example, I think like when we were young, we had many wishes, desire. By the way, as introduced, my name is Kugimana Eric. I've grown in an institutional care of children called Orfenano Denyondo. It was located in the district of Gisenyi, Rubavu. I've lived there for almost 22 years old. 20 years. I joined when I was 6 months old. When we were young, we had a desire to know, many children had a desire to know who are their family members, where did they come from, who are their biological parents, who are their relatives, close relatives. And many of these questions, nobody could answer, neither of the people who were working there, neither of the administration of the orphanage, until government cooperated with Hope and Also Children. They took that initiative, not only to deinstitutionalize it, but to first have these facts. Can we know the families of children here? And because these questions were answered late, some children were not fortunate to find their families. And if these desires of children, if these wishes of children had been addressed early, I believe every child would have got his family. Because of being late, their family, maybe you remain with your own mother, dies when you have never met her. So recommendation should be withdrawn through the desires and the wishes and the needs of experienced people. Should recommendations, problem solving should be coming from the desires of experienced people, because all these recommendations. Yes.
Hi.
No.
Hi. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, Eric, thank you so much. I think you've answered that question really well. And I also think you've even gone to answer some of the other questions. But I would also like to, because of time, I would like also to move to the second question, which is about, thank you so much, Eric. So I would like to move first into the other question, which is about why it's important for government to hear about lived experiences. And maybe Rahab, could you please share a little bit, because I know you've really been involved on matters care reform in Kenya, why you think it's important for the government to hear about lived experiences. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Rahab.
I'm Rahab Nyawira. I'm a care reform advocate and also a caregiver. I'm going to share about the role of caregivers in the care reform of the government. I can speak of some of the initiatives that I have been involved in, like coming up with the standard operating procedures on care reform and disability issues, and what we have been able to achieve through such initiative as a care network. I'm part of the Kenya Society of Caregivers, and through these initiatives, I've been able to contribute to this kind of forums with governments and also UNICEF. For example, I'd say on disability participation, I have been very key on that matter in ensuring we put disability participation at the center of everything, because there's not so much that has been done to encourage people with disability to participate. So being in this kind of forums, I am happy that I'm able to give my input on how best we can encourage and empower more disability, children with disability and young people to be part of the process, rather than just hearing a part of a document was developed or something has been discussed and they don't know what it really is. So being part of this process, for instance, when we are talking of disability rights, I've been able to work on documents on mentorship, like during the development of the standard operating procedure. Some of the topics we were discussing about was on mentorship. You know, if we are talking of mentorship, we are talking about reaching out to more people, empowering and building the capacity of others. For us to have developed these advocacy skills, how best do we help others to be empowered to reach out and to participate, you know, not just listen, but know why this discussion should matter. And also when we're talking of inclusion on disability, maybe on the care reform strategy, the development of the care reform strategy and alternative care is to have inclusive, you know, in these meetings, we have more people with disability being involved in these forums, especially caregivers, and also they give their input on how best they want changes done to them. So that has been what we have been discussing mostly on inclusion and information and empowerment and mentoring in that regard.
Thank you so much, Rehab. Indeed, yeah, it's wonderful to hear that you've been involved in the development of the standard operating procedures and also involved in the care reform strategy development processes here in Kenya. Maybe Karekezi, this question goes to you to understand what are the best ways to bring people with lived experiences into the national care reform, especially as a representative of a very critical group of people who really are pillars of care reform, foster carers. So Karekezi, again, what are the best ways to bring people with lived experience into national care reform?
Come again. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Do you hear me?
Yes, very well, Karekezi.
Yeah, thank you. Come again with your question.
Yes.
I think we also have Richard on the line who could help with translation, if that would be, Richard, would you like to translate the question?
Absolutely.
No.
Odile abajije uko ni gute twakorana n'inzego z'ubuyobozi na guverinoma ku buryo abantu bazana ibyo ubuzima babayemo, ubuzima babamo cyane cyane kuri wowe nk'uwakira umwana mu muryango, ni iki kuko bakorana n'ubuyobozi kugira ngo babashe kuba bateza imbere child care reform? Nicyo kibazo Stephen yarabaje. Urakoze cyane.
Thank you. Let's try to give you a feedback in English. I'm trying. People with lived experience need to be informed about the reform, the child care reform, and they need also to be strengthened in capacity to well do what they do, what we are doing. They need also to be mentored and supported financially if needed. If needed, because there are some families with low incomes and then they need financial support. Yeah, that can be done through organizing regular consultative meeting. Yeah, in our country, we have many opportunities through Muganda, through other meeting, regular meeting. We can pass through them the information, the key information. There are also, it can be done also through organizing training for foster parents and other caregivers to update them about the child care reform. And also, if the budget allows, it can be fruitful to organize the exchange visit. And also, it can be done through organizing a platform of caregivers to share experience through webinars as you are doing now. I think it will be supportive to do like that. And in that, it can be, if they can be consulted in planning, in planning sessions, in implementation, and even in evaluation workshop or sessions. I think that is my point of view.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karekezi. Indeed, the experiences of Rwanda, especially the way people are consulted, not just at the macro level and the meso level, but also at the very small unit within the communities. I think that's something that we can learn from you. And you've mentioned something that's very important also, the support groups organized for especially parents or caregivers involved in these processes is also very important. I don't know whether Dennis can hear me, and if you have anything that you'd like to add on that point. Is Dennis around?
Yes, I'm around.
Thank you. Please come in, Dennis.
Hi, kindly help us repeat the question again for him.
Yes, so what are the best ways to bring people with lived experience? Sorry, I was muted. So what are the best ways to bring people with lived experience into national care reform? That's the question. Adding on to what Karekezi has just shared.
Okay. I will translate for them. Best ways engage sobola okuleetamu abantu abavudde maybe mu institutions netubaleeta wamu okulaba nga muri national care reform okubaleeta wamu
engeri yandibadde ennungi okubaleeta awamu okuba nga tubaako training zetuteekawo okuba nga ziba involvingamu abantu abo tuteekewo trainings okuba nga ziba involvinga, n'ekirala okwongera okukola awareness mu media platforms, okuba nga naffe abantu abadde mu life experience ya ghetto batu involvinga, like wabeerawo programs ezikwatagana ku ghetto life, ne batu involvinga. Buli programs ezo bwe zibeerawo ne batuwa platform, kisikiriza oyo omulala ali mu ghetto eyo oba ali mu institutions ezo okugamba okukwatibwako life experience yange, n'asobola okuba ng'akola ki, ng'avaayo okuba nti n'omulala eyandiyagadde okuba nga ajoyininga nga takijoyininga. So nze kino.
Okay, Dan says that the best ways to bring people that have lived experience, he says that it's through trainings where they can invite them for trainings, they come together and share ideas, more information on how to support one another. Then the other is coming up with programs, maybe through media where they can involve them, engage them, so that their voices are heard, even for those that would have wanted maybe to join to go into institutions, or those who would have loved to take people into institutions, they learn, so their voices are heard, and they put mechanisms so that children or young people don't enter into institutions, and those who would have loved maybe to go in on streets, they know that there is a better life, there is chance for them to grow. So through such programs, and also he says awareness, sensitizing communities, putting also programs in place that can support the youth and to better themselves. In a nutshell, that's what I can say.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Maybe I would like to ask Olivia whether he can share an example in which the lived experience could have been approached better or differently in order to improve the quality of participation. And this is really in regard to also what Beth shared about the participation. As times it can range from being very tokenistic to being very meaningful. So do you have an example in which the lived experience could have been approached better or differently in order to improve the quality of participation? Over to you, Olivia.
Kyagezaako okugamba like bwe mwali mu institution obulamu bwe mwayitamu, so osobola okuwaayo example engeri gy'olaba nti eri oba ogamba nti no kino kye twayitamu naye singa baali bakozeewo kino osanga obulamu bwali badde bwaki bwanjawulo. So kati kyayagala osharinge nabo.
Well, good morning once again. I'm Olivia. For me, what I'm saying, by the time I joined the institution, I was young. And when we compare the time I joined and the years I have now, and the years I left the organization, it's really, really quite long. Maybe if the government or the directors of the institutions, maybe if they had put the age limits, that when a certain child crosses to this age, maybe she or he is good to go out and face the world with their families and so on. Maybe that one could have helped us. But at the moment, the challenges I face, I cannot totally bond well with my family members. I cannot, to the extent that even if I get a problem, I still have to call at the organization where I grew from, because those are the only people I grew hearing from, seeing, sharing with. So it's really kind of hard. And if they did it that way, maybe it could have helped.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry.
We're saying thank you. That's all from Olivia.
Okay, thank you so much, Olivia. And I think it speaks to a major concern on preparations for living care. Majority of caregivers from the research that we've all read is that they are poorly prepared. And it also seems that there is a really, there was a poor relationship between the caregiver and the institution. And that also translated to a poor preparation for exit. And so I think that's a major issue, and maybe it's an issue that can be discussed on its own session. I'd like to move over to the next question, really, on what do we think are some of the challenges of bringing lived experiences into the care reform? And maybe I'll direct this question to Dennis and Rehab on what you think are some of the challenges of bringing lived experience into the care reform. Rehab, can I go back to you on this? What you think are some of the challenges of bringing lived experience into the care reform?
If I could talk about when we talk on stigma and discrimination, in the society, that I consider as one of the challenge of participation. Like if you are in a community where you are stigmatized based on the care identity and all the assumptions people have on care, you tend to be afraid to show up for what should really matter, like being part of these forums. You're always wondering, what will people think of me? I'm a caregiver, I can do this, I can do that. I think that in terms of the individual, it's a big problem of why not so many of us are not showing up for ourselves and what really matters in this context of reforming the care system.
Thank you, Rehab. And do you have any ideas or thoughts of how we can mitigate or alleviate this kind of challenge?
Still me?
Do you have any idea or thoughts of how we can mitigate or alleviate this kind of challenge?
As I pointed out on the point I just raised, I think one of the things we can do is to destigmatize care through awareness, like what we are doing at this moment. We are caregivers, we are letting people know this is our experiences, these are not imagined. That way people are able to understand us better and also join us, why they should all come together to make it better for others who are still going through the same procedure to improve the community. So I think that's what, to destigmatize care and to create awareness of our experiences and why it should matter in the care reform.
Thank you so much, Rehab. And I know Rehab has been involved on issues to do with persons with disabilities. And maybe after Badha, Rehab, you can share a little bit about any challenges, especially when it comes to participation of persons with disabilities. Badha, would you like to talk about the same point, or now what you think are some of the challenges of bringing lived experiences into the care reform?
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm actually happy that, Steve, you read my mind. I wanted to participate in this question. So one of the challenges that I think should be addressed is fear of manipulation. This is based on the previous experiences of those with lived experience on care. So in this case, you find out that most of them are actually approached by non-governmental organizations or even the government to talk about the experience that they had while living in institutions, and also help formulate policies that can be used to advocate for alternative care or care reform. But then they do not receive anything in return, or they're also offered false promises. So this kind of makes them to be reluctant to participate in different forums that maybe are related to care reform. And so one thing that I think needs to be done is that before engaging a caregiver to give a story of maybe their experience, one thing that should be done is that there need to be a signed agreement and a contract, at least to show appreciation. Just tell them this is, you're going to participate in this study, and then you will receive this in return, and what they signed should be fulfilled. Yeah, so that is my contribution. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Baba. And I would also like Eric's input into this question on what you think are some of the challenges of bringing lived experiences into the care reform. Anything that you'd like to share, Eric, on this briefly? Thank you.
Thank you. The most challenge I would think is lived experience. People are not accessible. They are hard now to find because some of them, of which even have the better expertise and even knowledge to share these informations, most of them they have their own challenges, which does not allow them to be accessible, to know, even to build that connection. Secondly, is lack of even information from the other sides. Like, for example, some of them, they don't know whether even these kind of discussions, conferences exist. Some, they don't even know that there are some discussions going on about care reform. So if you don't know what's happening, you cannot participate. Maybe that's even a bigger challenge, because we might be here talking about these issues while 80%, 70%, above 50% of people who live in care are not aware that this is a serious topic that has been put forward with different NGOs. So I'll pick those two.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. And maybe this also speaks to the issue of having associations. And I know that you are currently in the process of developing the Rwanda Association of Caregivers. And I also know that in Kenya, we have the Kenya Society of Caregivers, and which Rehab and Abeva are part of. And I think those are ways in which really that we can inform others of this kind of platforms, and also ways in which they can also be engaged in care reform. Not to forget, I talked about Rehab and her experiences, especially of persons living with disabilities. Rehab, please kindly share a little bit on what you see are some of the challenges, especially when it comes to engage in this category of people.
Good afternoon, everyone. If I can look back to my experiences and what I still see happening at the moment, even with other caregivers with disability that I engage with, is some of them, due to disability, some people view disability from a charity lens. These are just people should be worked on, as opposed to people that should be really participating and making an impact in the community. The fact that we still view these people as charity, people that should be worked on, is problematic, because for us to be like, after all, these people are just coming to help us. Why should I even be involved? It doesn't really matter. That's a big problem. We are when we say we are not charity objects, we should be part of the change agent. And the issue of stigma, I'll touch on stigma and discrimination a lot. Even for me to really come out and be part of this initiative of reforming care, I really had to have some deep discussion with myself. You know, I was like, it's not just about me, it's about other people and what this means to them, you know, the betterment of their future and the society at large. Yeah, that's all I can say at the moment.
Thank you so much, Rehab. I know it takes a lot of courage, and I think it also takes a lot of preparations. And I think why it's important for the actors to really listen, so that when they engage in people with lived care experience, they know what it really takes. So because of time, really, I would like to ask everyone here. I know you might be having one burning point that you'd like to share as part of the closing for this session. Just share one thing, and maybe in just a few seconds, what you'd like you know, the governments and the other stakeholders here to really take away as your final point. So I would like to start with Olivia. Just one point that you'd like to share. Olivia, is there one point that you'd really like to share as a parting shot when it comes to participation of persons with lived experience? If you're not ready, maybe I will go to Badha.
Okay, thank you, Steve. One thing that I would like to request the government to do is they should come up with data that shows the exact number of people with lived experience in their respective countries, and also support associations that work with people with lived experiences. We have Kenya Society of Caregivers, Rwanda Society of Caregivers, Uganda, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother. Indeed, I think the issue of data is so much important because most young people, you know, they leave the system, they fall through the cracks. Nobody knows where they are. Nobody knows what they're experiencing. Indeed, it's a widespread concern in the region. Let me go to Dennis, if you can hear me. Is there one thing that you'd really like to share, especially in regard to participation and people with lived care experience?
Thank you, moderator. Once again, I'm quite dense. What I would like the government to do is to put more emphasis, like in those what?
Institutions.
In those institutions, so that we see that more youth they don't go back to institutions. Like emphasis in like in terms of laws. Mateeka like mateeka okulaba nti amateeka bagateeka mu nkola agalwanira eddembe ly'abavubuka oba eddembe ly'abaana ne domestic violences ezo okulaba nti amateeka ago gabeeramu strong. Amateeka ago gabeeramu strong mu families, tekireetera mwana oli kubanga akola ki nga nyigirizibwa okulaba nga agenda mu institutions ezo.
Thank you. Dan says that government should come up with laws. If the laws are there, they should, you know, put in more effort so that children or youth don't end up in institutions. And also for the institutions that are approved by government should put in more effort so that they monitor, they supervise, they know what exactly is happening in those institutions, they know how children are living, and also if children have families, children should go back to their families. They should support those institutions so that children go back to their families. They are reunited. And also he says that there are so many families in Uganda that are facing domestic violence. So government should come up with, they should sensitize, do a lot of awareness, you know, supporting families so that children are not abandoned or are not separated from their families.
Excellent.
Because if the laws are in place, families will be aware and they will be accountable and responsible for looking after their own children.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Karekezi, 1 point, please. Karekezi? Okay, let's
Thank
move.
you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just say one thing. I will recommend to government in the region to put into the place a regional consultative meeting or platform with the people having experience in child care reform. Yeah, to get to
Excellent.
share
Thank you.
experience and get up to date and information about it. Thank you.
Excellent suggestion. So thank you so much, Karekezi. Indeed, having a regional platform for persons with lived care experience is a very, very good idea. Rehab, and then let's go to Eric. One thing.
One thing, please
Yes.
believe us, don't stop at it.
Thank you so much. That's a good one. Believe in us, don't stop at it. Eric, one last thing. Eric, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, do you have
What?
one parting shot?
One
thing that you'd like to say as a final word?
only I would like this to keep going on as time allows, and I appreciate you for bringing this panel discussion forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone here, and I also appreciate the fact that we had people who are on the ground and people with lived care experience, and all those who've supported them, especially in the translations. We really appreciate. So because of time, I would like to hand over these to Beth now. Beth, please take over. Thank you.
Stephen, I wish we were all in the same room so we could give a giant round of applause, even a standing ovation. Really, really well done. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. We actually do have a few questions from the participants, so maybe we can spend a few more minutes just on those. If you do have a question that you'd like to put in the chat, we have a couple of minutes for those. The first one I actually want to put to you, Stephen. That question is, what thought do you have about how we can maintain really meaningful participation and the momentum around care reform if without donor funding? It's so reliant on outside donors. What thoughts do you have just off the top of your head about how some of this can be maintained without, if we didn't have that donor funding? Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Beth. Quickly, I think how to maintain these and also making sure that it's meaningful. It's to really support national associations or networks of young people who are really trying to come together to establish a platform, not only to influence care reform, but also for them to benefit in terms of the challenges that we see them experiencing when it comes to life skills, when it comes to coping, psychologically, emotionally, and, without influence of any other organizations come in to really say, we'd like to support you in what you're planning, to address when it comes to lived care experience. Because at times we see organizations that will come in with their own agendas on this to try to influence them on certain things. But I feel like it's important to really support initiatives by and for caregivers that are much more disconnected, from other organizations, for this to really be more meaningful. And I think in terms of sustainability, there are all ideas on sustaining this. And one way in which governments can do this is to ensure that within the institutional frameworks, the policies and all that, they give a seat at the table of at least, representatives of these associations of young people. I think in brief, that's what I would say, Beth. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think those are really important points, Stephen, and appreciate hearing your voice in this. Let me go to Bertha with the next question. Just briefly, what would you say you yourself have gained from being part of care reform in Kenya?
Okay, thank you, Beth. I would say the first thing that I've gained is networking. I've gotten the opportunity to interact with different people from different parts of the globe, especially on matters care reform. And I'm excited to say that I recently conducted a research on with UNICEF on the experience of caregivers in Kenya. So that was a big plus for me because I got to speak to several caregivers from different counties in Kenya. And one thing that stood out for me was that there is need for caregivers to be supported. And there's also need for them for the institutions to conduct follow-up sessions after they leave the institution so that they ensure that all caregivers are doing great. And just to answer this, someone who asked a question on what will you respond to a CCI or that says all their children are doing just great. They need to go back and do follow-up sessions. If one or two are doing great from the CCI, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are doing great. So there's need to do follow-up sessions so that all of them are in the same path. But I'm grateful. One of the greatest achievements is conducting that research. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertha. And I think that speaks to the point someone made earlier about really the importance of data and evidence. And I think that's beginning to be built, but lots of additional opportunities to really start by understanding the situation and making sure that our interventions and our programs and our inputs are supported by that data and that evidence. Really appreciate that, Bertha, and I'm excited that you've had those opportunities. I'm going to turn over to Mona in just a moment to close today's webinar. Before I do that, the other question that was in the chat had to do with improving foster care and the changes that we see in children when they transition from institutions to foster care. I'm going to put in the chat the link to the global collaborative platform for transforming children's care, where there is actually a series of webinars and informational sessions that has just been launched around foster care, and encourage all of you to join those conversations to hear more about how foster care is developing around the world and what the benefits for children can be. Just in summary, some of those key messages that we heard, the importance of data and evidence, the need to really support associations as sustainable models for participation of people with lived experience, policies to really strengthen families and that focus on preventing separation to begin with, having a regional platform, a space where people with lived experience can come together across countries and share experiences. And then I just want to repeat those really great final words from Rahab and from Eric, which were believe in us. Really want to hear you, Rahab. We do believe in you. We're proud of everything that you're doing, and I know for myself, really look forward to making you proud in the way that we engage people with lived experience into the future. So absolutely keep it going. I look forward to ongoing conversations, and thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining today. It's been a really, really rich discussion. Over to you, Mona.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Beth and Stephen, for facilitating.
Thank you, Beth.
Lively. Can you hear me? Beth, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mona.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. No, I was just saying, what an impressive panel discussion. And I was wanting to thank Beth of Changing the Way We Care for organizing this session. And I also understand that Stephen had a key role to play in organizing also the panelists and the questions.
Seems like we've lost Mona.
Indeed, it does seem like we've lost Mona again. I will just sort of try to pick up. I think she was trying to say, oh, are you there, Mona?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Not so well.
Oh dear. It's not my lucky day. I have to use my my phone. But let me maybe switch off my video so that you can hear me better. I was just wanting to thank you, Beth and Stephen, for organizing this this session. It's been such a rich and informative panel discussion, and we've learned a lot from the persons with lived experiences. And as Beth summarized towards the end, I think it's very important for us to take note of the key asks on how to ensure that persons with life experiences also benefit also and receive resources to be able to advance the work on care. I would like to maybe spend a bit of time to let you know some of the key priorities. And I'm sorry that you're not able to hear me well, but I am here. And in terms of the next session for the learning platform, we have on the 11th of May a webinar that is on aligning care systems in development and humanitarian context. So that's a webinar coming up on the 11th of May. We will share, through our networks, the details, including the login details for the webinar, and really looking forward to all of you participating. And secondly, as part of this learning platform, we have a monthly newsletter, which somehow, summarizes the key areas that have been discussed, but also the sessions that are held from this webinar. And so we will be sending that out to you. The first newsletter of this year was sent out, and I hope most of you have received it. If you haven't received it, please put your details, your email. I saw Beth put a link in the chat box. So we're encouraging you to register on that link so that you can also be able to receive the newsletter. For the UNICEF colleagues, I will be forwarding this newsletter to you, but for all the other partners, we can, through Changing the Way We Care and Child Frontiers, they will be able to send it to you directly. And lastly, from my end, there are a lot of very exciting sessions that are planned for this year. And so please watch out for the newsletter, because we also highlight the sessions that are coming up, including the login details. I note that we did not have government representations today. And I note that it's the last week before the Easter break with lots of public holidays. But please, I'm referring to all the participants that are here. Once the recording is shared, and I think, Beth, you're going to do that, the recording and some of the key highlights from the webinar, we encourage you to share with your government counterparts who are not able to join us today, so that they can be able to play and listen to the very interesting discussions from the persons with lived experiences. And lastly, for the next sessions on the 11th of May, we will again remind you so that you can also extend the invitation to your government counterparts. And really, from my end, thanking all the panelists for their very informative responses, very well thought through responses to those questions and your experiences, most importantly. And I also thank participation from Rwanda, recognizing that it's the 28th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi. So our thoughts and prayers are with all of you that are commemorating this month of April. So with that, I thank you all very much. Thanking Changing the Way We Care. And Beth, I know that you must be connecting, from a different time zone, but still you managed to really facilitate and organize these sessions very well. So with that, I thank you all very much and wish you a very happy Easter to those who celebrate it, and really looking forward to connecting with all of you soon. And so that's the page with all the resources, and Beth will share with everybody for your information. They're very important, useful links that you can click and learn more on. So with that, thank you, and back to you, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate your time today, and wish everyone well with the rest of your day. Happy Easter to those who are celebrating. And thank you, Mona, for inviting us to be part of this, this session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Great collaboration. Bye for now.